Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to interrupt your conversations, but a really warm welcome to Anglia Ruskin University, to ARU, and for any of you for whom this is your first visit, I hope very much it's not your last visit. This is a small room to be mic'd up, but this is being live streamed, so there is an online audience as well. So joining this fantastic face-to-face audience, thank you so much for coming along this evening despite the cold and the rain. We love inaugural lectures at ARU. They're always really happy, celebratory events characterized by feedback and other technological infelicities. They're an opportunity for us to learn more about the outstanding contribution that colleagues have made and which is being recognized in promotion to a professor. And Matt is going to be telling us, I'm sure, more about his own particular work. This evening's lecture about reimagining HE and the need to really work out how best to meet the opportunity we have as a university and the obligations we have to society couldn't be better timed, because we're right in the throes of writing our next university strategy, which really is us as a community trying to articulate the key principles by which we intend to constantly reinvigorate and reinvent HE. So I will be plagiarizing shamelessly this evening's lecture. Please may I now invite Professor Laurie Butler, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Dean of the Faculty of Science and Engineering, properly to introduce this evening's speaker. Laurie.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chancellor, and a warm welcome to you all. So it's always a pleasure to introduce speakers for these events, but it really is an absolute pleasure to introduce Professor Matt Timmis this evening. So Matt is a Professor of Sport and Exercise Sciences Education and serves as Director of Student Outcomes within the Faculty of Science and Engineering here at ARU. Since joining ARU in 2010, Matt has demonstrated exceptional leadership in education, research, and professional practice, shaping institutional strategies that enhance student success and academic excellence. Matt has made a significant and sustained contribution to higher education pedagogy, leading innovations in curriculum design and co-curricular development. His collaborative approach to delivering meaningful change has been recognised twice through Vice Chancellor's Awards for Team Excellence in Education and nominated 3 times for Advanced HE's Collaborative Award in Teaching Excellence. An accomplished researcher, his research spans student transition into higher education, visual search and human movement. He's organised several national and international conferences, served as guest editor for international journals, and has supervised numerous doctoral completions. Matt has over 75 publications, and his work has been cited over 1,000 times and included in the past 2 Research Excellence Framework exercises. Matt also holds esteemed roles within the Chartered Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences cases, including co-chairing the Higher Education Endorsement Scheme Advisory Group. Successful collaborations across his professional body enabled the sector to respond to the challenges students faced during the COVID-19 pandemic. And he's also introduced the professional body's first endorsement scheme for postgraduate degrees and introduced the Sport and Exercise Scientist Graduate Tracker, enabling the PSLB, the professional body, to better support its graduates. Matt is widely recognised for his academic leadership and mentorship, having supported numerous colleagues in achieving Advanced HE Fellowship and Professional Body Accreditation, and his commitment to staff development and collaborative leadership has strengthened ARU's research culture and teaching excellence. His external esteem is reflected in being awarded Principal Fellow of the Higher Education Academy, the highest recognition for individuals demonstrating strategic leadership and a sustained impact on high quality learning in higher education. Within his professional body, he's been awarded the Cases Fellowship in recognition of his services to the Chartered Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences and the Sport and Exercise Science community. Most recently, Matt has been appointed the QAA Subject Chair to lead the review of subjects benchmark statements for sport and exercise science degrees across the UK. So with all that, and with that introduction, it gives me great pleasure that we invite Professor Matt Timmis to deliver his inaugural lecture celebrating his outstanding contributions to education, research and leadership in higher education. So, with a talk titled Opportunity for All, Is It Time to Reimagine Higher Education? It gives me great pleasure to introduce Professor Matt Timmis.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. For those physically in front of me and for those that are joining online. I'd like to start by extending my thanks to my professional body, the Chartered Association of Sport and Exercise Sciences, for agreeing to co-live stream this event to its membership, my fellow members. And my thanks as well to the AIU IT team for being here and facilitating that. I want to provoke you. In the time that we have together, I want to present some thinking. Some thinking that particularly those of you that are involved in higher education will go away, come on in, you're very welcome, will take something from the time that we have together that may shape your practice, that may cause you to reflect on what you are doing and why you are doing that. That may not be immediate, may not be tomorrow, hopefully in the near future. And I'd like to frame the time that we have together through considering something the Office for Students has written. The Office for Students are the independent regulator of higher education in England. And they write, higher education has a responsibility to provide equality of opportunity for students from all backgrounds to access and succeed in their studies. What are they really saying? Providing opportunity for those who traditionally would not have had opportunity to access university. And why have I taken this wonderful occasion, the opportunity to talk about this? Well, it's the mission of my institution, and I'm really proud to say I've been at AIU since 2010. It also resonates with my own personal mission, my own personal views and values that everybody deserves the opportunity to succeed. And it also reflects a lot of the profiles that we see amongst students studying in sport and exercise science related degrees. And I'm going to draw on practice from the sport and exercise science subject area a lot during the time that we've got together. This is an area where many across the UK are working really hard to understand their students and understand how we can shape and change, transform their outcomes. So let me provide a jumping off point for this. Some work published in 2019 demonstrated the value that sport and exercise science courses was having, not only for the UK economy, not only for the average salary of the graduate, which in today's terms that's about £27,000 now, but also the impact sport and exercise science courses was having on its locality, the community, the ability to bring societal change through impact those immediately around universities. And this was brilliant. This was something that the subject area really celebrated, and rightly so. But I felt compelled, after reading this, to write in my professional body magazine, something that's disseminated to around 3,000 members, that whilst this is brilliant, we cannot forget, at the time, the near 5,000 sport and exercise science students across the country that don't reach success. I don't get a Christmas card from my professional body, and I wonder why. And the Office for Students Remember that independent regulator within England? They're also bothered about whether students succeed within their studies. And they use the term continuation. So how many of our students in their first year of study succeed in getting into that second year of study? How many continue with their studies? There's a lot of information on this screen. Don't panic. Let's go through it step by step. If you were to take any university course in the country, you could put it into one of these 34 broad subject areas. I've deliberately made that font too small to read because some of the competitive people in the room will try and see where their subject is. This horizontal red line on the screen represents the threshold that the Office for Student expects from subjects, from courses, to achieve in the number of students that continue into that second year of study. So towards the subject areas that are closer to me, the Office for Students are happy as much as they can be in terms of continuation with these subjects closest to me. But as we move further away from me, you'll notice there are some subject areas that fall below this threshold, that fall onto the Office for Students' naughty list. That yellow bar represents the subject of sport and exercise sciences. 6% below that threshold back in 2019. And this caused a lot of discussion with subject leaders across the country. What is it that's going on? We understand what the problem is, but we don't understand why. And that framed a lot of work that permeated from this, from 2019, where we recognised that only through understanding the students' experiences can we begin to shape their outcomes. And this first bit of work that I'd like to present, with collaboration with Sharon Pexton that works at our Peterborough campus within AIU, and Fran Cavalerio, who's sitting at the back here, we really were motivated to get an understanding of students' experiences of their first year in higher education. And we asked our students, our second and third year students, to write a letter back to their younger self. We said, if you were starting your degree again, what advice would you give yourself to be successful? And what happened? We got a whole range of letters that were written. Fran, Sharon and myself, we gathered around and started reading these letters, almost acting like detectives, trying to spot patterns, linking bits of student writing together, almost like subheadings. Thank you so much indeed. Or even better so, themes. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Themes that represented what was going on in the students' writing. And students told us the value of personal growth, the importance of focusing on their academic life, the need from their first week of study to think about what it means to be employable, the dangers of unrealistic expectation. When I graduate, I'm going to go and work in this elite club and I'll be the best person in the world. Maybe, but unlikely. And also the need for self-care, to look after yourself. Now let's be honest. Most of us that are involved in higher education probably could have written most of those down without the need for Fran, Sharon and myself to write this. But the value in this work lies in students telling students advice. Not some stuffy old bloke saying, kids, this is what you need to do to be successful. That doesn't land anywhere near as effectively as using the student body to help and support the student body. And we were really motivated to try and use these ideas, these themes, to see if we could support the next set of students coming in to the university. So, Fran, there was a few of us actually. There was Claire Strongman, who's with us this evening. Thank you, Claire. Fran, Kim Humphrey, Yvette Winard, and Adrian Scruton were really wanting to see, can we produce a pre-arrival module online that takes these ideas that the students have told us and package this up for students to engage with before they even start with us. And the rather youthful looking two academics on the screen there, this was the opening thing that students saw. This was the first thing they arrived at when they accessed this online resource. A high energy, enthusiastic, welcome, we can't wait to meet you video. I'm going to pause and jump out of this a little bit because I want to explain something. When a student decides they want to study at university and accept that place, they then go through a bit of processing and then they're registered at the end of it. They come out of this registered on our university systems with a student email address. And we use that student email address to load students onto a lot of our resources, give the students access to everything that they need for their studies. Brilliant. Some students decide they want to study, go through this really quickly, and they're ready to go middle of August. We don't officially welcome students into our welcome and induction until September, early September, and teaching starts middle of September. So these students are in a waiting period, ready to go. Great. But let's contrast that with a student who decides at the same time as my previous example, they want to come to university, and then maybe they can't find that certificate, maybe they're trying to just get some funding agreed, and it takes a bit longer for them to go through this process. And actually they come out of the end of this ready to go and study at university, maybe a week before we want them on site for welcome and induction. And as a team, we reflected on actually, is that okay? Are we happy with preparing our students, giving some of them a 6-week lead-in and some of them 4 days? So we did something quite bold and dangerous within this project. We worked with our IT team to load students that had accepted their place at AIU onto a pre-arrival module using their personal email addresses. So every student had at least that 6-week lead-in time, irrespective of what was going on with their admission process, so they could start preparing for their next step. And when the students arrived, we talked to them, we interviewed them and said, hey, what was your experience of this pre-arrival module? Those students that didn't engage with it, tell us why. Why didn't you? Not in an accusatory, how dare you, but you've got an experience that we want to hear because you've decided not to engage. Great, let's hear that. And again, rather than reading what the students had written, we listened back to the interviews and went through that same process of trying to understand, make meaning of that data. And one of the things that the students told us was that this pre-arrival online learning site created a sense of preparedness for university life. Specifically, it helped create familiarity. I distinctly remember when we were delivering the face-to-face welcome sessions, students came up to me and said, "You're the one from the video." And I was like, "Yes, I am." And we were immediately, not now, we've updated the videos, come on, let's be clear. But the students immediately felt a sense of connection. It wasn't that awkward, hello, who are you, where have you come from? It was boom, straight there. Then the students were saying, oh, I've travelled from so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And then you were talking to the next student, oh, they've travelled from so-and-so. And it's like, great, well, John's travelled from there. Why don't you go and have a chat with John? They've made a connection. Step back, let's move on to the next students. It helped also, they told us, give them a head start. And this is a direct quote from one of the interviews. They said, you've already kind of got the wheels moving a little bit. And it was just that moment of, that's exactly what we were trying to achieve here. And we liked that quote so much, we used it as the title for the paper. How well do we know our students? How well do you know your students? If we want to prepare students, we kind of need to know where they're at as they're coming to us. That the university, higher education, has expectations, and rightly so. We want you to be able to do this and do that and engage with this. But surely, if we want to support the students in being able to do that, provide any resources to help lift anyone up that needs to, don't we kind of need to know where they're joining us from? So we were really motivated. David Stevens, who's with us this evening, we set up a really fruitful collaboration with Northumbria University, Rakema and Angela Hibbs, and we wanted to ask students, interview them, about their expectations of higher education. What are you expecting? What were you expecting? So we sat them down in I think it was the first teaching week. So we wanted to give them a chance to settle before we pounced, but we didn't want to go too far into the trimester, so those initial experiences had clouded what they were expecting. And I'll present just a little bit of this work, but what they told us about their expectations of higher education was that their previous education environment, specifically their teacher, had used scare tactics to leverage engagement from them in their previous education environment, such that they felt that the teachers kind of scared us almost. We were told, from what I'd heard, everything's basically on you. You have to be proper on it. Now, my goodness me, if you're a student coming into maybe this space here, or even one of our larger lecture theatres, thinking, it's all on me, I've got to go and do it, that must be such an anxiety-inducing state for a student to arrive to us in higher education. And I'm really fortunate in my role that I get to go into lots of different welcome events across my faculty. And I've learnt so much from this, that one of the things that I labour repeatedly with my students, with ARU students, is that there is a fundamental difference between independence and isolation. And what these students are telling us is that they are alone. And I keep saying this to students in welcome. Independence is different to isolation. Reaching out for support, utilising all the resources we have within the university, that is okay. That still demonstrates independence. And I do just want to take a quick time out. I was reflecting on this as I was coming into work and realised some people from this slide may take away, Matt thinks all the problems with university students transitioning into higher education is teachers that are doing a bad job before. That is not at all what I'm trying to say. I am not for 1 minute suggesting that what this is here is representative of previous education environment's culture. I know firsthand, my darling wife is a teacher. I've been on a governing body for 5 or 6 years, and the effort that they put into teaching. This may well have been a student who has heard something and translated this to feed a certain level of anxiety or confirmation of something. So please don't latch on to anything around what we understand is students are coming into this space a little bit anxious and feeling like they are isolated. And what we are beginning to see across the UK now in some pockets of excellence is that pre-arrival, so this is before a student starts with us, they come to that induction or welcome week in their first year, people are beginning to reach out and say, hey, we'd love to get to know a bit more about you. Could you fill out this survey? Could you, have a quick conversation with X or Y? And what people are beginning to do by getting to know, personalise their education in a way that they are shaping their welcome sessions based on what they are knowing from their pre-arriving students. So as an example, the sport and exercise science team that are with us this evening, they asked their students, tell us a bit about you. Over 75% of that cohort are commuting students. So what did the clever cookies do? Delivered a session in welcome about what it means to be a commuter student, how to be successful. What are the challenges, but how can we celebrate you being a commuting student? The really innovative cookies across the UK are now beginning to update their curriculum such that they're getting rid of the first week or 2 weeks of traditional subject content and saying, let's spend some time on you as a holistic student. Let's not worry about the specific content for your subject. Let's consider what we can do to ensure that you're ready to go. And some of you may say, yes, but I've got a professional body that mandates I have to do this and this and this, and I don't have space. Yeah, that's a fair argument, but what people are doing to get round that is they're saying, let's provision additional teaching, seminar, supportive sessions around those teaching sessions if you're not able to get round a strict PSRB. We also asked these students in this same project, I'm coming back to this now, we asked them to answer a few questions before they arrived. We specifically asked a question on what might be a potential barrier affecting your attendance? Why may you not be in front of me on a Monday at 9 a.m. when we're all ready to go? And quite a large proportion said having a 9 a.m. start is going to be tough. The cost of travel is going to be tough. Having one session in a day is going to be tough, probably linked to the cost of the travel and linked to the one below, their work commitments. And this information that I've just presented on the table is representative of UK higher education student population. Left-hand side of the screen, home students, so students that live in the UK and study in the UK, are working on average 23 hours a week. That's like 3-hour shifts just about. 3 shifts at 8 hours. That was last year. This year, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes up a little bit. Why are they working? To fund their degree, to fund their ability to commute. What we see on the right-hand side of the screen is that now more than ever, we see a student population in the UK that is commuter-based. They drive or get the train or, I don't know, the helicopter if they're super fancy, to be on site for their session. And some people will say, yeah, but commuting students, they've only got to travel from 20 minutes away. That's not a problem. They can get over that. So what I did, I for one of my schools within the faculty that I work, I wanted to know where their term time address was. If we just jump to the right-hand image on the screen, the map, where all the blue dots are quite densely aggregated, that's a place just outside of Chelmsford, a place called Writtle. And what you begin to see is a dispersion in where students live during their term time. This is where they wake up on a Monday morning and need to be where all the blue spodges are most densely populated by 9 a.m. The left-hand side of the screen, let's just address those we'll say outliers that are up in York, in Leeds, in Manchester. They were on part-time courses where they needed to be in for sort of 2 or 3 days and then they got to disappear again. I'm not suggesting that they were down the A1 every 2 or 3 days. Nearly a quarter of this one school within a faculty, within an institution, have over an hour's drive to get to campus. Hey, let's be clear as well. I plotted this data on a Thursday night, 9 o'clock, using Google Maps, trying to get round the M25, the M11, for a 9 a.m. start. Let's possibly up that to 90 minutes or 2 hours. Now, how many of you, when I showed this data, bottom left-hand side of the screen, this table, having a 9 a.m. start, how many of you maybe thought, students, they don't know how to set an alarm, they may be a bit lazy, they've been out the night before partying. Knowing what you know now, they could have been out till 2 a.m. working. They could have been in gridlock and have missed the entire session just trying to get here. How many of you would nuance the way you interact with a student who may be beginning to drift off in your session, who may be sheepishly coming in 25 minutes late? Yeah, exactly. And we were really, really interested in understanding why some of our students are making a conscious decision not to be on site, not to be with us. And my thanks to Judith Cork here for allowing me to present this work, this research, before we've actually got it ready for publication. So this is a sneaky peek here, everybody. We interviewed students that, I say good students, these are students that were passing their modules. They're doing fine in their studies. But their attendance was less than 50%. Some of them were down at 10%. So they're doing all right. Why? Because they're engaging on all our excellent online material, but they're not coming in as much. And we wanted to know, why aren't you turning up? Not in an accusatory way, but just hey, we want to understand your experience. And the students told us, well, I'm not coming in because I need to save money or work to make money. I'm not coming in because I want to save time on my commute and I want to study so I can do well in that assessment. I'm not coming in because I need to be at home to support my family. Like, really engaged with caring responsibilities. And some students are saying, it's just too disruptive in my session. I'm just not able to focus. But why do they want to come in? They want to engage with the teaching staff. They want to see their friends. They want to participate in active, engaging learning sessions. But the bit that made me really sad about this work, irrespective of which side this seesaw lands, they choose to come onto campus or they choose not to come onto campus. They're left with an overriding feeling of guilt. And it makes me sad that we have a large proportion of students across the UK that will be wrestling with a feeling of guilt irrespective of what decision they make. Just so we set expectations, this isn't the slide where I say the yellow bar's now over here and it's amazing. That's for another day. If we want to understand all our students, then we need to go beyond these white bars and the yellow bar. We need to go beyond talking to the students that are succeeding, that are continuing into their second and third year of study. We need to look at this messy red part. These sadly represent the students that have not continued to that second year of study, that are no longer studying in higher education. And this has caused me to really reflect on, have we, higher education, got this slightly wrong? That we place the responsibility on the student to come to us. And hey, let's be clear though, many students do, most students do, and are engaged and are transformed by the way we educate them. But the fact that we require a student to engage with this thing, with that thing, our systems, our processes, maybe our culture, expects the student to move to us. But if we're being true to our mission, opportunity for all, what about those who don't engage? What about those that don't know how to engage? But the sector is responding. We are beginning to see emerging in the sector something that's called third space practitioners. So we've got the teaching staff that teach, and we've got a wonderful set of professional services colleagues that deliver mental health, well-being, library references, employability support. But in the middle, you've got something a little bit unique and distinct. And I want to introduce the student outcomes team. And as I do that, I want to jump into Dr. Seuss, a very famous children's writer. On the screen here, we have an elephant called Horton. Horton, at the end of his trunk, is holding a very little flower. And on that flower is a tiny, tiny Who person. And the book's titled Horton, the elephant, here's a Who, a little person. And the story's all about their journey of getting to know each other. And Dr. Seuss writes, a person's a person, no matter how small. Now, when I read that, I translate that through my fantastic mind. And this is what I read. A student's a student, no matter how disengaged. The student outcomes team comprises these 4 wonderful people within the Faculty of Science and Engineering. And they are experts in reaching the hard to reach. They are experts in picking up the phone and ringing one of these students that has just not engaged with their higher education and saying, hey, what's going on? Building a relationship, accountability. How can I help you to unpack what's going on in your life? And hearing these guys on the phone when they start pulling at a thread is phenomenal. Their craft. I use the term dog with a bone, but that seems to upset them a little bit, that they latch onto something, that, hey, something's not right. Students are very good at saying, yeah, it's fine. It's like, no, let's get past that and let's start understanding what we can do to help. And what is fundamentally different about this team is that this idea of students having to move to us to engage is reimagined, because this team is moving to the students. How can we help you, engage you, refer you to an appropriate service and get you back engaged? And it may be as simple as, would you like me to contact your personal tutor, the person that's involved with the pastoral care, to set up a meeting for you? And they say, that would be amazing. It just feels a bit too much for me at the moment. Great, let me take that for you. And these students that the student outcomes team are working with are what we call at risk of not continuing. They're low or non-engaged. They've not done anything yet. And I return to this bar, this just to remind you, the Office for Students set this horizontal yellowy bar as the threshold that they want to see for continuation. This team, in 2 years of operating, has been able to demonstrate with low or no engaging students that it is possible to hit that metric. And I am so proud of them. They're brilliant. But let's be clear, this isn't 4 people just smashing it and being amazing. They are amazing, but the success of this team lies in this spider web. Their ability to pull in maybe people from the teaching side, the personal pastoral side, pull in those from our professional services, building relationships with those parts of our institution to say, can you help me with this student? And what do they say? Yes. That's why we're seeing success with this model. And the lessons that we've learned in the 2 and a bit years that we've been operating. Early intervention is fundamental for success. The data that we're able to draw down from various systems in our institution enables us to recognize within the first few weeks, we've got a few red flags, what can we do? If we are waiting till the 10th, 11th week of their study, it is really tough to get them back because they've almost kind of checked out. So we need to be effective in utilizing data to prioritize the resource. The value of a telephone call, it's so easy. And I am absolutely guilty of this. Setting up a fancy mail merge, 300 students have been emailed. I've done my job because I've reached out and said they can book a meeting with me if they need it. But here's the shock and awe thing, everybody. A student who's not engaged may not be reading their emails. Ringing them gets through that potential barrier. And some people say, yeah, but they don't pick up the phone. Well, what's wonderful is we can leave a voice message. When we leave the voice message, it translates immediately with the system we are using to an email. And what do? We give them a ring again at a different time in the day where they may not be working. They may be a bit more receptive. And more often than not, these tenacious cookies in the student outcomes team, they get through to them. But let's move away from the numbers. Let's go back to the individual, the student. This quote summarizes perfectly the value of these third space practitioners. If you hadn't rung me that day, I wouldn't be here, continuing into the next year of my study. That's the impact this team is having on the individual students. And we're seeing this, by the way, let's not get too carried away here. Other institutions are operationalizing similar models as well. But I would suggest we're one of the early adopters within the country. I'm conscious of time. I continue to wrestle with big problems. I'm really, within work, by the way, work-related. I'm really fortunate that I have an hour's cycle ride to work, and it gives me loads of time to reflect and think. And this is one of the things that I'm continuing to wrestle with that I wanted to conclude with this evening. Students don't always succeed. The sad reality is not every student that starts with us in their first year of study gets to the end and graduates. But I'm left reflecting and wrestling with who's responsible for them. We're excellent in higher education at celebrating our alumni. Those that go on to successful roles that are the pin-ups that we really want to celebrate. We invite them back in to talk to our students, to motivate and inspire them. And absolutely, we should. We should be celebrating their success, our success. But I can't help but feel that those students that fail, and I deliberately use a polarizing term there, that fail, are asked to leave by the fire exit out the back, and the door just slowly closes behind them. Who is responsible for them? And I want to draw on something from the elite football sector. Crystal Palace Football Club are an elite Premier League football club. They were recognised for their aftercare, the support that they provided for young boys that did not achieve professional playing contracts. What did the chairman write? The academy's primary role is, of course, to ultimately produce footballers for the club's first team. But we have a duty and moral obligation to nurture and guide all the 200 plus players within our care. And I'm reminded of something my Vice-Chancellor said at a recent Leadership Away Day. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. Just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. I don't yet know what a package of support could look like for students that don't achieve their intended award. But I feel compelled that higher education as a sector needs to do something about this. To my family, my friends, and my colleagues, I want to thank you for being on this journey with me. Thank you.
Matt, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, you must be just a fantastic teacher. I want to come and study sports and exercise science. Fantastic delivery. We were all really good and really inspiring, I must say. Really provocative. And I really like the challenge to think really hard about the students that don't succeed and that leave us, and what obligation do we retain? I think that's a really interesting question. Thank you. Matt has kindly agreed to take some questions. This is a Q&A session. I think after this there's is there a reception as well after this? A little? I'm hoping there's some questions. We have a roving microphone, and there's a gentleman here who's got the first question, and if you could please be kind enough to wait for the mic, then your question will be picked up for the broadcast as well. Thank you.
Fascinating talk. Thank you very much. Just a quick question about how far do you extend this process? What about the process by which you award places to students? Because you could argue that that might have failed in offering places to students who were not really suited and equipped to start the process of an ARU degree course.
A nice easy one to start us off, hey? Yeah, that's a really, really appropriate challenge. What I've said to my team and the sport and exercise science lot that I've worked with for so many years is that if we accept a student, it's our responsibility to do everything we can to enable them to succeed. I've slightly dodged a question, so I will come back to it. I feel there's a real need to connect a little bit better with where our students are coming from. So working within the further education, the A-level space, how much can we say as educators that are in higher education have a really, really thorough understanding of where they're coming from? Because if, again, we return to this idea that if the challenge is, are you accepting suitable students? Well, let's reframe that and be positive, because that's kind of who I am. Let's get in the space to help change where we need to influence, to shape, so that they can be, if we're using the word, more appropriate. But again, I'm from a widening participation background. Everyone's appropriate if they want to. But thank you for the question. Great challenge.
Fortunately, ARU doesn't set its criteria for continuation as low as 80%. Why does the Office of Students think that it's okay for, if we take 250,000 students into higher education each year or there or thereabouts, that it's okay that 50,000 of those are not going to continue? Why do they set it so low? I was just thinking about that. That seems to be a remarkable acceptance of failure.
A low bar to fall over, you're suggesting?
Yeah.
I don't work
certainly
for the Office for
continuation in
Students.
my school, continuation benchmark here has got to be 92%.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
And that, thank you, Chris. So Chris is suggesting that ARU, we set a benchmark of 92%. And if you don't reach that 92%, you're on Roderick's naughty list. And I think that demonstrates the aspirational value that ARU has for transforming lives through our innovative and inclusive entrepreneurial education and research. Our motto, our brand, is brilliant.
But it's sending a rather unusual message to the sector to tolerate that level of failure.
It is low.
It is very low, isn't it?
But I probably am not best placed to comment on why the Office for Students sets it at that threshold. But it is a fair reflection. It is low.
Another question, please.
Thanks, Matt. Really good talk. How do we meet the polarised student population of 50% or more being commuting and 50% not, when no one wants to be taught at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Monday and no one wants to teach at 4 p.m. on a Friday?
Personalised education, which is a really flippant comment you can chuck out and saying, next question. What do I mean by that? Are we in danger of saying, this is what education looks like and it's fixed, and you've got to take it or leave it? Well, okay, well, I'm not going to be in at 9 o'clock, or I can't be here at a 4 p.m. on a Friday. Or are we, as innovative educators, able to say, we recognise that you may have challenges, realistic, real challenges in your life that prevent you from being here. So let's look at what alternative provision we could provide alongside that. Can we recognise that a student can tell us, I can't make it in because I'm caring for a parent and they're not very well. And our system embraces that and says, that's fine. This is what is there to support you so you're not left in your learning, so we can continue in your journey of education. But that's, as a challenge back to myself though, that's resource intensive and takes a lot of work to work out how we can appropriately monitor that so it's not abused. Thank you.
Hello. So I graduated back in 1996, which makes me very old. But when I went to university, only like 15% of the population did, and it was very much academic subjects. And now the majority of people are expected, the majority of young people are expected to go to university. How do you think that is? Is that setting them up to fail, especially when we're thinking about vocational, practical subjects like sport?
Yeah, great challenge. And when I say everyone should have the opportunity to go to university, what I'm not saying is that everybody should go to university. And something that the government is looking at right now is the lifelong learning provision. Recognising that our model of saying 3 years for a degree, let's go. Well, actually, maybe university, higher education doesn't feel right for you at the moment. Great, embrace that. Go and do whatever you feel is appropriate for your stage of life. But the lifelong learning provision begins to suggest, but it's always here for you if you want to better yourself in a way that's through an academic lens. You can come and study a little bit of a university degree and then go back and never come back again. Great, fantastic. But then you may think, oh, I just need to know a bit more on this. Well, I'll go back to this institution and get a bit more. And over their lifelong learning, they may achieve a degree, they may not. And this is absolutely, Claire, something that the government are beginning to challenge the sector with. This model, is it fit for purpose longer term? Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Do you think if they got rid of degree classifications that might help? Because obviously we're on an equality, not equity standpoint for education.
So your suggestion, or your question, sorry, not suggestion, your question, Nathan, is around if students completed their degree and were awarded a degree, that's on their transcript and nothing further. Oh, that's a toughie as well, isn't it, mate? I think it's an interesting idea to consider, but then how do we help support the next stage when they're going into industry, when we're working with the industry stakeholders that help craft and shape our degrees, when they're coming in and saying, we want our graduates to be able to do this and this and this when we're taking them on their graduate internship projects or as on their first role, their first job after studying, it becomes really difficult in my mind to nuance unless we're moving to a binary, yes, you're good enough threshold or no, you're not. Surely we need to recognise that there are different levels within that, and the Quality Assurance Agency sets that minimum standard, but then we're providing that additional level for the people we're working with to help make that choice. Interesting question now.
Hi, Matt.
Dan.
As ever, a truly innovative presentation and real thought-provoking. What do you see as the role in all of this with the PSRBs, with what really is, it's to a degree, it's a revolution in higher education? Where do you see their role being in all of this?
In what way, Dan? I'm coming back to you. So professional bodies, for those in the room, are outside of higher education, but can quite strongly, to the point where your degree being validated and accredited by a professional body is contingent on satisfying their conditions. So give me a bit more, Dan, if that's all right.
No, absolutely fine. So I'm using KCs as an example, that fundamentally with KCs, there is very little in the KCs. I'm going to get in trouble because there's a lot of KCs members online now, but there's very little in their requirements for example, course endorsements in relation to what we are talking about this evening. Is very little about the student experience.
Yep.
It's fundamentally all about, for example, the number of hours that are taught on a subject area. Are they doing these amount of practical hours?
Yep.
So does this mean actually that what we're talking about here, it's not just a cultural shift in terms of higher education, it has to be a cultural shift also within the PSRBs and the governing bodies as well?
Yeah, and interestingly, Dan, I'm part of the degree accreditation working group within KCs, where we are exploring accreditation, where we expect our graduates to be able to do competently X, Y, and Z. That enables them to go into a hospital and work with a client immediately after they've graduated or 12 months after they've graduated through demonstrating appropriate reflective activities that they're ready. So I absolutely recognise the need for our professional body to consider endorsement provides a quality assurance threshold for the degree, but it doesn't at the moment provide the graduate skills that we can test, where we can confidently say, you can now go and practice safely in industry. And to provide some reassurance, the last 18 months, Andy Scott from the University of Portsmouth has been leading this with a number of us across the country to see what can we do to address that. But this only works if the industry recognise the accreditation, because you can pump out as many accredited students as you want, but if the industry doesn't recognise it, it's a waste of time. It's coming, Dan.
Thank you very much. I think we have an online question, and that's probably one or two online questions will probably be the last that we can take. So let's go over to Laura and take an online question, please.
This is from Joe Bowser Angerman, who's a colleague at ARU. isn't it also part of the problem that we use engage as a blanket term when actually there are many different forms of engagement and disengagement? And there are also some comments about what we're calling it, and perhaps people are neurodivergent or having, dealing with disabilities, and perhaps there's a whole spectrum of things that are kind of underneath that.
Good, thank you, Laura. So for those in the room, Jahangir Bauselman, fantastic Deputy Dean for Education within ARU. Really, really innovative, exciting colleague that I've had the pleasure of working with for a few years. And she's asking the question, what do we mean by engagement? Does physically coming into this room and tapping on that little black box, that tells our systems you're engaged because you've attended. And Joe's beginning to challenge this narrative and say, what about those students that aren't frequently turning up, but the number of hours they are logging on our Canvas, our online learning system, is through the roof? Well, according to our systems, it's possibly suggesting they're disengaged. But if you ask that student, they'd probably come back with an alternative. And this is something that Joe, Judith, and myself have had a natter about in terms of what does student engagement look like? And that is so much bigger than the 32 seconds we've got left for questioning.
Well done, Matt. I am going to very briefly thank Matt for a really, really inspiring talk, and then I'm going to ask Laurie to give Matt a gift on behalf of the faculty and thank Matt from his faculty colleagues. But from me, Matt, congratulations. A really, really fantastic inaugural. Thank you. Well done.
Well, thank you very much. Do I need the microphone? Just microphone. Well, thank you very much, Matt. So normally at this time I'll be thinking, yeah, it's probably about time for home time. We'll have a drink, then we'll go home. Your talk's so inspiring. What I actually really want to do is now stay here for the next 4 or 5 hours, working out how we're going to do, like, part 2 of how we work on continuation at ARU. It's just so inspiring. So thank you so much from all of us. I mean, in terms of like the way in which you present the evidence this evening, it's careful, it's considered, it's data informed, it's innovative. It's all the things that we want in terms of how you develop real careful interventions to support our students. But above anything else, I would say it's compassionate, which is just absolutely what we need so much more of, frankly, in the world. I mean, we have a lot of it in ARU, and I'm very proud of that, but it is hugely to your credit. I would say as a student, you're just so lucky if you come across Matt Timmis at university and get to work with him. I would say as a staff member, you are extraordinarily lucky if you get to come across Matt Timmis and work with him at university. And I think for all of us, as a university, I mean, we're all here because we believe in that ARU mission. Oh dear, I am being told that's it. Stop talking. We all believe in that ARU mission, which is transforming lives. And, it gives me enormous reassurance that we have people like Matt here at ARU that are helping us day in, day out to do exactly that. So on behalf of all of us, Matt, just a small token of our appreciation, and thank you so much for everything you've done.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. Yeah.
So I think that's about it from us for this evening. So I think as Roderick said earlier on, there are an opportunity to stick around now and share a drink with Matt and talk further. So I hope you will stick around for a few minutes. That'd be great. Thank you so much for attending this evening. It's been an absolutely wonderful event. And so if you are leaving, safe travels home, and I hope we will see you again at a future event in the very near future. Thank you all very much. Good evening.